Folks, we are 5 days into bombing Iran. 5 days of American air power raining down on the Islamic Republic, and the mullahs are out there threatening to shut off oil to the entire Middle East. America is at war, and tonight, the President of the United States is going to speak to the nation about it. And the White House is saying nobody knows what he's going to say, not even the people in the White House, which, and I mean this, is the most honest thing I've heard come out of that building in years. Meanwhile, on Capitol Hill, 2 Republican senators are playing hard to get with the Attorney General nomination. The ICE agency is frozen, and Eric Swalwell, remember him? The congressman who had a rather cozy relationship with a Chinese spy, which the drive-by media found completely uninteresting, well, he's gone and paid his defense lawyer $360,000 from his campaign funds, days after resigning in disgrace. You cannot make this up. You sincerely cannot make this up. I have been doing this program for decades, and the material just keeps getting better. I'm Rick LeBow, this is Rush Hour, and we are just getting started. My friends, let's talk about what's happening in the skies over Iran right now, because the drive-by media is covering this like it's an inconvenient weather event between their regularly scheduled Trump is Hitler programming. Day 5. 5 consecutive days of American airstrikes under what the military is calling Operation Epic Fury, and I want to pause on that name for a second. Operation Epic Fury. Whoever names these things over at the Pentagon, God bless you. You are earning your paycheck. Operation Epic Fury. When I was a young man, you had Operation Desert Storm, you had Operation Enduring Freedom. Now we have Operation Epic Fury. And I'll tell you, the Iranians are finding out exactly what that means. United States forces struck Iranian command centers, air defense systems, the whole apparatus. And what is the Islamic Republic's response? The Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, these are the boys in Tehran who've spent 45 years funding every proxy terror group from Beirut to Baghdad. They're out there now threatening to shut down all Middle Eastern oil production if the blockade continues. Now, let's think about that for a moment. Iran is threatening to cut off oil to the world. This is the regime's big play. This is their nuclear option, so to speak. And I find it almost poignant in the way a 3-year-old threatening to hold his breath is poignant. Because here is the thing the IRGC apparently hasn't fully worked through. You cannot weaponize oil you cannot sell. The United States has reimposed the blockade of Iranian ports. The mullahs are already watching their economy circle the drain. And now they're saying, we will blow up everyone's oil too. That's not strength. That's a cornered animal making noise. There's a difference. And President Trump said, and I love this, he said he would be willing to wipe out the IRGC the same way he wiped out ISIS. The same way. In 2019, he didn't negotiate with ISIS. He didn't convene a summit. He didn't write a strongly worded letter to the UN. He sent in the military, and he and the military eliminated them. And the media told us for 3 years it was reckless and dangerous and would cause World War III. How'd that turn out? Now, tonight, President Trump is giving what the White House is describing as a really big address. The White House says it'll cover free and fair elections, the Save America Act, and this Iran situation. And they're being deliberately cagey about the details. Nobody knows, they say. Could be a major announcement, could be a policy shift, could be anything. You know, folks, I have watched presidents give addresses to the nation for many, many decades, and there are 2 kinds. There's the kind where you already know exactly what's going to be said because someone leaked it to the New York Times 48 hours earlier, and then the president reads it off a teleprompter, and the Times runs a piece about how the speech confirmed their earlier reporting. That's type 1. Type 2 is the one where the White House actually holds the cards, where nobody knows, where the anticipation is real, and whatever you think of Trump's style, whatever you think of the theater of it all, and it is theater, and great theater at that, he is one of the only political figures in modern American life who can still generate that kind of electric national attention. The drive-bys don't want to admit that. They'll cover the speech, they'll analyze it through their lens of maximum negativity, but they will cover it, every one of them, because the ratings demand it, because America is watching. Now, let me back up and give you some context on this Iran situation that our friends in the press are not giving you, because they like to present this as though it appeared from nowhere, as though one morning American bombs just started falling on Iran out of a clear blue sky. The ERGC has been the engine behind virtually every major terror attack on American interests in the Middle East for the better part of 4 decades. Hezbollah, ERGC. Hamas, in significant part, IRGC money, IRGC weapons, IRGC training. The militias in Iraq that were killing American soldiers with those shaped charges, IRGC. Every time American blood was spilled in that region and somebody asked, "Where's this coming from?" the answer, if you followed the money and the weapons and the men, led back to Tehran. And for years, American policy was, well, let's be careful, let's be measured, let's send a strongly worded letter, let's do a sanction, let's do a waiver on that sanction, let's do a deal where we give them pallets of cash and they promise to be nice for a little while. Let's do a joint comprehensive plan of action. The joint comprehensive plan of action. You know what the Iranians called that? Winning. Trump walked out of that deal in his first term. The media said it was the end of diplomacy as we know it. The Iranians said they'd have a nuclear weapon within months. Here we are. What we are watching now is what happens when an American president actually means it. When he says there are consequences, and then there are consequences. Now, will this escalate further? Possibly. The president has to make those calls, and they are heavy calls. Nobody who has ever sat behind that desk takes the decision to put American lives in harm's way lightly. Nobody. And that includes this president. But here is what I know. I know that the ERGC has been operating for decades on the assumption that America will flinch, that America will get up to the line and then pull back, that enough noise, enough threats, enough proxy harassment will eventually make Washington blink. That assumption is currently being corrected at altitude, somewhere over the Zagros Mountains. Now, while all of this is happening, while American forces are in active combat operations, while the president is preparing a major address to the nation tonight, what are we fighting about in Washington? Well, I'm glad you asked. The ICE agency handles immigration enforcement is, and this is the word they're using, frozen. Not because of some court order this time, not because some federal judge in Hawaii decided he runs foreign policy. No. The ICE agency is frozen because the president and his own Homeland Security Secretary, Mark Wayne Mullen, are in a standoff over whether ICE officers can conduct traffic stops. I want you to hear that again. We are 5 days into bombing Iran, and in Washington, the burning question consuming the immigration enforcement apparatus is, can my guys pull someone over? Now, I don't want to dismiss this entirely because it is a real legal and operational question. There are limits on what federal law enforcement can do in states that have tied their hands. Real concerns about liability and authority. Fine. But the timing, folks, the timing. Meanwhile, the man we're going to talk about now, Todd Blanche, Trump's nominee for Attorney General, he is apparently making progress on Capitol Hill. Chuck Grassley, the Judiciary Committee chairman, is sounding more positive, which is good, which is necessary, because right now we have an acting attorney general and an ICE agency that's having an identity crisis, and a Treasury Department that's about to announce a financial crackdown on what they're calling transnational political terrorism. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent will be revealing those plans today, apparently, cracking down on the money behind groups that fund political violence and terrorism across borders. That is a significant story that deserves significant coverage, and you will hear about it, probably somewhere buried between a story about a celebrity divorce and the latest breathless update on whether Donald Trump's tie is too long, because that's how the drive-by media works. The actual machinery of governance, the actual levers being pulled, the actual financial warfare being conducted against the people who fund terror, Page 8, below the fold. But Todd Blanche, if he gets confirmed, and it sounds like the path is getting clearer, he will be running a Justice Department that is supposed to be, by design, the opposite of what we had for the last 4 years. And here is where I want to address something that Senator Thom Tillis and John Cornyn seem to be confused about. Tillis, in particular, has been reluctant. His concern, and there's a piece in The Federalist that puts this very well, his concern seems to be that a DOJ going after people who weaponize the DOJ is itself weaponization. Senator Tillis, with respect, and I have limited respect available at the moment, going after your political opponents is weaponization. Holding accountable the people who weaponize the justice system is justice. The word for that is justice. It's right there in the name of the department. Eric Schmidt said it plainly, and he is correct. The DOJ under the last administration went after a former president, went after parents at school board meetings, went after Catholics, went after people for their politics. And now holding those people accountable is somehow the same crime? I've heard some things in my career behind this microphone, but that one is a new entry. Folks, this is what we need a functioning, confirmed, Senate-blessed Attorney General for. Not an acting one, not a placeholder, a real one. Get it done. Get Blanche confirmed before the August recess. That's the job. Tonight's address, whatever it contains, happens against a backdrop that is consequential. Iran, the legal and constitutional architecture of the second term, the question of what the DOJ is going to look like going forward. These are not small things, and I'll tell you this, I'll say it plainly. The American people sent Donald Trump back to the White House because they wanted someone in that chair who would not flinch, who would not be managed by the Beltway establishment into smaller and smaller boxes until he was harmless and decorative. The mullahs are learning that, and the permanent Washington class, the Tillis wing, the hand-wringers, they're going to learn it too. Don't doubt me. All right, let's get into the roundup, my friends. Rapid fire, let's go! First up, and this one is a delight, Eric Swalwell, the congressman from California's 15th district, the man who had a relationship of some kind with a Chinese intelligence operative named Fang Fang. A story the drive-by media found so uninteresting they practically refused to print it, has resigned from Congress amid sexual abuse allegations. Bad, that's bad. But here's the kicker. In the days after resigning, Swalwell's campaign accounts paid celebrity defense attorney Sarah Azari over $360,000. Now, campaign funds. Those are donated by supporters. They are supposed to be used for, and stay with me here, campaigns, not for your personal legal defense after your career implodes in disgrace. And he paid this to a celebrity defense attorney because when your career ends in sexual abuse allegations and you need someone in your corner, you apparently go for the most camera ready lawyer money can buy. The Federal Election Commission has rules about this sort of thing. Whether those rules will be applied is another question. But I want the audience to remember this the next time Eric Swalwell goes on CNN, because he will go on CNN, and lectures anybody about accountability or ethics or the weaponization of anything. Remember the $360,000. Remember Fang Fang. And remember that this is the same man who sat on the House Intelligence Committee while all of this was happening. The Intelligence Committee. You just can't write it. Next, and I love this one because it illustrates something I have been saying for as long as I can remember. New York and California are hemorrhaging taxpayers. Not just people, taxpayers. The kind who actually pay into the system rather than draw from it. All 10 counties with the largest net taxpayer losses in the entire United States of America are in either California or New York. Every single one. Now, the left will tell you this is about the weather, or the cost of living, or remote work, and there's some of that. But let's not be naive. People are not leaving Marin County, California, for Phoenix, Arizona, because they suddenly developed a passion for the desert. They are leaving because they are being taxed into submission, because the governments in Sacramento and Albany have decided that productive people are an ATM, and they have been withdrawing aggressively. And here is the irony that I savor every time I bring this up. The states that are growing, Texas, Florida, Tennessee, the Sun Belt broadly. Low taxes, less regulation, governments that generally leave you alone. That is not a coincidence. That is cause and effect. That is the free market voting with its feet. No nation has ever taxed itself into prosperity, and you cannot redistribute your way out of the consequences when the productive class decides they've had enough. The Democrats in Sacramento and Albany will respond to this by raising taxes on whoever is left, because that is what they do. That is all they know how to do. And the exodus will continue. And in 10 years, they will commission a study to figure out why this happened. And the study will probably blame climate change. Finally, Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, has announced that the military will be doing annual testosterone screenings for servicemen over 30, with testosterone replacement therapy available for those who need it. Now, the left is having an absolute meltdown over this. It's pseudoscience. It's toxic masculinity. It's a vanity program for MAGA gym bros in uniform. The usual. Here is my take. You want your fighting force, the men who are going to be conducting Operation Epic Fury and potentially expanding it if it comes to that. You want them operating at peak physical capacity. Testosterone levels in American men have been declining for decades. This is not a conspiracy theory. It is endocrinology. It is documented in the scientific literature. Low testosterone is associated with fatigue, reduced muscle mass, impaired cognition, and depression. Now I ask you, do you want the men protecting this nation to be fatigued and running on empty? Or do you want them healthy and strong? This seems to me like a fairly easy question, but in today's America, asking your soldiers to be physically optimized is apparently controversial. Meanwhile, the same people clutching their pearls over testosterone screenings were perfectly fine with the military spending years on gender sensitivity training and pronoun policies. That's not a metaphor. That actually happened. Hegseth is trying to rebuild a military that fights and wins. Start with the basics. This is a basic. My friends, I want to leave you today with something simple. We are living in a remarkable moment. America is conducting combat operations against the regime that has been the primary sponsor of terrorism in the Middle East for 45 years. The Treasury is moving against the financial infrastructure of transnational terror. $10 billion in defense investment is going into Pennsylvania. The Attorney General is getting confirmed. The machinery of American power is moving. And yet, in the great media capitals of this nation, the conversation is about what Trump said at a press conference, or whether a Republican senator is nervous, or whatever Haley Stevens did with a pink latex glove in 2020. The drive-by media's job is not to inform you, their job is to manage you. To keep you focused on the shiny, distracting objects while the actual consequential decisions are made in the background. My job, the job of this program, from this golden microphone, from the Attila the Hun chair, is to tell you what's actually happening. What's actually happening is that the United States, for the first time in a long time, has a government that is willing to use its power, that is willing to say to the mullahs in Tehran, to the financial backers of political violence, to the establishment class that has run this country into the ground, the arrangement is over. You may agree with every move being made. You may have concerns about some of them. That's healthy. That's what citizens do. But don't let the noise merchants convince you that nothing is happening, or that what is happening is bad simply because it offends the sensibilities of people who have been wrong about everything for 30 years. Stay engaged, stay sharp, and keep listening, because this program isn't going anywhere. I'm Rick LeBeau. This has been Rush Hour. Same time tomorrow, if they let us back on.